Oui, oui, on vous entend bien.
Ok, super. Merci.
Merci.
Hello, is Arushi there?
Hello, good morning, everyone.
Hello, I'm Audrey. Nice to join you.
Hi, good morning. Arushi, are you there?
Good morning, everyone. Can we request all the participants to kindly mute themselves? Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Connect Capacity Building Workshop. We're very delighted to welcome you all, and to open the session, I would like to welcome Ms. Can Ngos Convert, Director General of Fcra, for her welcome remarks.
Thank you, Rishika. I hope you can see me and I hope you can hear me, because I can't see myself.
Yes, Payal, you're visible and audible as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining this morning for this NGO capacity building workshop called Connect, which is brought to you under the aegis of the IFCI CSR committee. I'd like to start by welcoming the new leadership of this committee for this year. Our new chairman is Mr. Anurag Pratap, who is the Digital Inclusion and Sustainability Leader at Capgemini. Vice Chairman is Shankar Ramakrishnan, Head of the BNP Paribas India Foundation. And the advisor of this committee is Ms. Sumana Das Gupta, Director Corporate Partnerships at Helpage India. I'm sure that this committee will achieve new heights under your leadership. Today's session is quite dear to our hearts, especially during a time when we are all trying to navigate and sail through this pandemic. And we hope to organize many more such sessions in the future. The idea behind this event was to think about ways to handhold NGOs and to make them more capable and successful across different functions. And I'm very happy with the program we have today. We have we have some excellent speakers from various domains and prominent companies, and they will be introduced to you in a moment, but I'd like to thank you all for being a part of this initiative. Today's session will take our NGOs through everything from financial management to marketing to understanding the regulatory environment. So we really hope to add value through this session. Lastly, I'd like to thank the Charities Aid Foundation for their support, DAS Systems, the Embassy of France in India, His Excellency Mr. Emmanuel Lena has accepted to be with us today. Thank you very much for being with us. And of course, I'd also like to thank Olivier Belmer, who has been a great help in coordinating this effort with us and with our team. So thank you very much. And I would now like to pass over to our president, Mr. Sumeet Anand, to kindly make his remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Payal. I'm having a bit of a network issue, so in case that you can't hear me, please let me know and I may switch my camera off in that case. Is it okay for the moment?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay, great. Thanks, Payal. I'm pleased to welcome you all to this edition of the NGO Capacity Building Workshop, which is one of the first flagship events of the IFCI CSR Committee this year. I'd like to thank His Excellency Ambassador of France to India, Mr. Emmanuel Lena, for his support and presence today. We all know that corporate social responsibility is of prime importance to you, especially in the current context. Thank you to our speakers and our partners who've been involved in putting this session together. CAF India, our CSR committee members, Anurag, Shankar, and Sumana, and the NGOs who have joined us today for the workshop. I think we have about 80 participants who will be attending today. That's a great show. The Chamber has been involved in a number of initiatives to showcase the contribution of French companies in India since the outbreak of the pandemic. Our CSR committee worked on a report to showcase the contributions, and we also recently released a video which took us through the great work being done on the ground. I'd like to thank His Excellency also for promoting this video on all social media during the French National Day celebrations of the 14th of July recently. Corporate social responsibility is an increasingly important issue for France and is a subject of negotiations with many bodies such as the United Nations, OECD, ILO, European Union. And France has strongly supported the United Nations adoption in September 2015 of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which sets 17 sustainable development goals for the world, as we all know. In fact, we know in India that CSR is also critical. It's not a new concept. We've had the amendment for a few years in the Companies Act, where companies are mandated to spend 2% of their profits on CSR. And this has enabled companies in India to focus on impacting society in a much more structured manner. In what's also changed in the last few years is a shift that's happened in India, where not only corporations, but also corporate foundations and charitable trusts have gotten far more active in supporting CSR initiatives. With the emphasis on CSR, businesses across sectors are re-examining their company's impact and their role in creating sustainable policies. The corporate sector has a key role to play to help build management capacity, which is the subject of this workshop today, in the not-for-profit sector, so that it can share its best practices from the for-profit sector, which are relevant, and help the not-for-profit sector make a bigger impact in society. Hence, this event today is of prime importance, and I would encourage you to do more of these, taking advantage of not only our CSR committee, but also the entire CXO leadership that exists across all the members of our companies in India. With this, I'd like to welcome you all once again, and look forward to a very insightful session. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. Payal.
Thank you, Mr. Anand. I would now like to invite Ms. Meenakshi Batra, CEO of Charities 8 Foundation, for the context setting of the event. But I would just like to briefly, tell you all about Meenakshi. Meenakshi Batra is a seasoned international development expert with over 28 years of sector experience. As a CEO of CAF India, Meenakshi pursues a consistent commitment in integrating social good for both businesses and society at large. Meenakshi has been conferred with many prestigious awards for her work in the social sector: Social Women Leader of the Year twice in a year, Indian Woman Achiever Award, NGO Women Leadership Award, Women in Leadership Award, and many more. Over to you, Meenakshi.
Thank you so much, Payal. Good morning, everyone. It's good to be with all of you this morning. We are talking about CSR here. And I would like to start with saying that the not-for-profit sector, since the new act, this part of the act, the CSR part of the act came into being, the not-for-profit sector has been a backbone of delivery. Of course, there are, corporate foundations. Some corporates are doing, implementing their own programs directly. But majority of the CSR programs are being delivered by the not-for-profit organizations, and they have actually, if there is a, when we sort of assess, we look at 5 or 10-year achievement of CSR, the NGOs' efforts have to be recognized. Again, when we say not-for-profit sector, the NGOs, I mean, we have a huge variety of organizations in our country, some very prominent ones, some smaller ones, some, with international affiliations, others very grassroots organizations. So we really need to sort of recognize the landscape that we have for not-for-profit organizations. And it's important that, the bigger organizations in a city can play a huge role, but at the same time, a smaller organization in a remote area has its very deep roots in that area, a vast understanding of the context. So it's very important that we build capacities, and that's what CAF does. Those who do not know about CAF, while we do a lot of advisory to corporates on the CSR programming, we also invest heavily in building capacities of the not-for-profit organizations. We of course do grant making through CSR and other types of funding. We also do due diligence of the organization. While due diligence has, on one hand, a purpose to ensure that partnerships, are done with credible organizations, two-way due diligence. But at the same time, a lot of NGOs have found that the due diligence is very important from them in terms of identifying the gaps that they may have in their organization. And a lot of organizations have gone ahead to fulfill those gaps. So capacity building, we do a lot of advisory to not-for-profit organizations. So as an organization, we focus quite a lot on culture of giving. So we want to grow the culture of giving. We want to enable people, corporations, organizations to give with ease, give with trust. At the same time, we also want to make the not-for-profit organizations more successful. And of course, to do that, we build robust systems in our organization so that, the work can go on smoothly. So I would, just want to touch upon very quickly on some of the challenges that the sector is facing at this point of time. Even before COVID hit all of us, there was a lot of, government had, come out with this requirement that the not-for-profit organizations would have to renew their 12A, which is their not-for-profit registration, and the ATG, which is the tax exemption, provision. So that had to be renewed. Now the timelines are delayed because of COVID. So it's very similar to the Fcra, where Fcra was required to be renewed every 5 years. Earlier, it used to be lifelong. So this sort of presents a new set of challenges for us. It means that every 5 years there will be a scrutiny, and we need to ensure that our capabilities are strong, our systems are strong, so that we don't default on any of those matters. So that's very important. So keeping the internal hygiene of the organization is very, very critical. And then lately, just before COVID hit us, we were responding to this changes in the CSR rules. The trusts and societies were omitted from the language. And so what did that mean? I mean, the fear was, so if trusts and societies, which are the backbone of implementing CSR, if they are taken out of the system, it means, a lot of CSR work will collapse. So we have been working quite closely with the government to advocate that this cannot be done. I mean, they have to, bring trusts and societies back into the system. They are, playing a very, very important role. And then, while all of this was happening, we were, talking to Niti Aayog and some of the other, relevant ministries about it, providing them feedback. The COVID situation hit us, and which, changed everybody's lives, as we know. So did it for NGOs. Some NGOs, have not been able to, go out in the field because of the situation, while others have been literally working with the frontline workers. And we have also, we also saw a huge dialogue happening with the government at that point of time, particularly with Amitabh Kant from Niti Aayog, who later wrote an editorial where he recognized the work of 92,000 NGOs who were playing a role in responding to COVID, whether it was food aid or it was, supporting the migrant workers, or even, working with police, working with sanitation workers. The whole range of activities were going on. So that was really good that the government recognized that role, and which opens a lot of doors for us to continue our dialogue, continue strengthening our relationship with the government as a not-for-profit sector. And so I would like to say that the collaboration of the NGOs, corporate sector, and the government is very, very critical. And for that, as a not-for-profit sector, we really need to be ready. We really need to, invest a lot in our own capabilities. And this seminar is about building those capacities. So we will be, during the day, during the next few hours, we will be going through the CSR landscape. We will be looking at the financial management. We'll be looking at some of the fundraising products, that like payroll giving, etc., for which we can partner with people. But I think it's required at this point of time for our society, be it corporates, be it NGOs, be it individuals, to really come forward and help and play their role in recovery at this important point of time when we have all been hit by a pandemic. So I over to Payal with this. Thank you, Payal.
Thanks. Back to Rishika. She's managing the program.
Thank you, Meenakshi and Payal. It is now my honor to invite His Excellency Mr. Emmanuel Lena, Ambassador of France to India, to deliver his keynote speech.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you. I'd like to thank first IFCI, its president, Summit, and its Director General, Payal, for organizing this great meeting. I think it's very important to share views and experiences between companies, between NGOs and all CSR stakeholders. I strongly believe that companies can be a part of society and can be a force of change for good. And it's very important that we share views on that. as you know, the relations between France and India are just outstanding, and companies are an important part of it. Could be more important, by the way. I think we should join efforts and make sure that business flow is even more important. And this role of companies has been even more important during the COVID crisis. As you know, there's been some very strong government reciprocal support during COVID. The Indian government has been extremely helpful to the French government, helping source some medical equipment, some drugs that were really needed by French hospitals at the beginning when France was having its peak in March, in April of this year. And since then, the French government has reciprocated, and there's been a very special loan by the French Development Agency of 200 million euros, so 1,600 crore rupees, I guess, to help create social benefits, social programs for the most vulnerable populations. And there's a package of special assistance which will be released next week with some medical equipment and some expertise, which was decided by the French president as a gesture of friendship. So government to government, a lot. But companies are doing a lot also, and French companies are doing a lot as a way to express their CSR and their willingness to also to have a positive impact in India. As you know, French companies do employ a lot of staff in India, more than 3 lakh people. And they've been doing all that period very, I would say, they've been very cautious, very responsible. They didn't lay out much staff. They've done everything they could to retain the staff, to not to cut on the salaries. But beyond, I mean, the French companies have been generously contributing to the funds that have been set up by the Indian government, such as CARES. According to my knowledge, the total amount of funding by French companies to this fund has been more than 6 million euros, which is very significant. But there's also been a lot of, I would say, in-kind donation. Some companies have turned their assembly lines, have made sure that they could contribute, giving ICU beds, giving ventilators, giving any sort of sanitizers, masks, protection equipment, so on and so forth. And these have been great gestures. Strongly believe that it's through this action of CSR that you build long-term relationship, which is really what we need in business as in other areas of our cooperation. French companies have a long-term commitment to India. They are long-term investors. They believe in India. They believe in the growth of India, in the potential. They share the same values. And they strongly believe, as our government do, that our two countries are aligned in the long run, that they share same interests, the same values, that they are large democracy, and they respect diversity, and they're going to be stable on the long run. So we're going to boost our action, and I'm sure French companies are going to boost their CSR. So that's why it's very timely that this workshop is organized to share the best practice and the good experiences. Thank you for organizing, and I'm looking forward to hearing your discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, His Excellency. We really are honored that you are here with us today on the platform. Up next on the program, we would like to invite Mr. Abhijeet Kumar, COO of Charities Aid Foundation India. Abhijeet is a social thinker, CSR and philanthropy advisor, and an impact innovator. He has been instrumental in redefining the Indian philanthropy sector through his extensive experience for over 2 decades. Abhijeet, over to you. Abhijeet, you will have to unmute yourself.
Am I audible?
Yes, now you're audible.
Yeah. Am I audible now? Okay, thank you. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to, come and talk about the topic given to me is all about CSR. All about CSR, and I simply think that this may not be possible in the 8 minutes I have. But since the underlying theme is strengthening non-profits, in the limited time that I have, I'll try and present all about CSR as experience from an average medium-sized Indian NGO, particularly in a post-COVID times. What challenges and opportunities does it offer to NGOs, and what capacities do they really need to build to surmount these challenges and problems? Pre-COVID, we all know that India was the first country to mandate CSR as a legislation. And in the 6-7 years, we have seen how corporate support has been flowing to the NGOs. It has increased year on year. In 2018, 18,500 crores, or more than that amount, was spent on the CSR. And about 50% of that money was deployed with NGOs as implementing agencies. Post-COVID, the traditional CSR funding for NGO seems to be going into a containment zone, with 50% of CSR funds going to the PM Care Fund and other COVID-related work. The NGOs would be short of getting regular CSR project funding, and this is going to shrink very significantly. Now, this has disrupted the finances of an average NGO. What further is the lockdown in March. To the NGOs were in the month of March. Now, many others diverted their funds to COVID relief work. April, May did see some funding, COVID-related funding going to NGOs, but that is also getting dried up. One research estimates that CSR funding for NGOs in the next couple of years is going to shrink by 30 to 60%. What does it mean? There is an existential question for the NGOs. There are research that shows
Abhijeet, we can't hear you anymore. I think you're muted.
Yeah, I don't know, something is happening on its own, so my apologies.
Okay.
So I was saying that there are research which is saying that, the funding for NGOs, CSR funding in particular, is going to shrink from 30 to 60% in the next couple of years. Now, what this means is the very existence of NGOs are under threat at the moment. And there are researches now happening which are showing that 60% of Indian NGOs are going to perish because of the lack of funding that they have. What are the other implications of it? The social sector employs about 7 million people today. 30 to 60% reduction will mean 2 million jobs will be lost. The regular programs that the NGOs are doing have been either called off or suspended. And the fear is that the effort and the resources that have gone into those programs will all go in vain. Notwithstanding the CSR amendment, which hangs on the fate of the NGOs to really access the CSR funding. COVID has brought some serious concerns around survival, around capacity and sustainability of these NGOs. But the situation may not appear as gloomy if the NGO sees them as opportunities and not challenges. Why do I say so? Because NGOs and the work that they do for vulnerable groups will continue to remain very critical. The way NGOs responded to poor marginalized groups with life-saving interventions during COVID relief work, food, preventive kits, transportation, healthcare, these have been acknowledged by one and all. These have been valued by one and all, including Niti Aayog, after it appealed for NGOs to support helping vulnerable sections of the society. Even in the context of COVID outbreak, we are learning that the management of COVID has to be hyper-local, and NGOs' work is also hyper-local. Therefore, the NGOs are best equipped to give local solutions to local needs and problems. Now, how can NGOs convert these challenges into opportunities? They should use this time to rework on programs and operation strategies and revise budget downwards. They should diversify fundraising sources and seek long-term support to reduce the risk that come from project-based funding. They should explore employee giving programs, because we have noticed that targeted financial support is being given to the NGOs under employee giving program to help them survive and sustain their core capabilities. They should encourage their employees to pick up new skills, particularly in the area of fundraising, communications, and campaign. They should strengthen their compliances and capacity quotients. They should build their capacities in digital skills and competencies and infrastructure. This is something I've seen many NGOs postponing it for a later day. And when the lockdown was imposed, they were caught unprepared. Very important to embrace technology and see how technology can be integrated to the services that we are offering to the community work, to the donors, to the partners. It's also important to revisit my stakeholders' engagement strategy and make it sharper, bring more quality and depth into it. And there should also be an effort to establish collaborative, to do advocacy, and campaigns for appropriate and effective support from government, corporate foundations, and individual funders. I know this sounds very simple, but could really demand extraordinary efforts. The uncertainties of future are serious, posing extraordinary challenges to the NGOs, and therefore the solutions must also have to be extraordinary. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Abhijeet. That was really very insightful. Up next, I would like to invite Ms. Prachi Mishra, Head of Learning and Development, Dassault Systems India. Prachi Mishra is a certified training professional from the Indian Society for Training and Development, which is also called the ISTD. She brings with 14 years of rich experience, of which the last 5 years she spent as an entrepreneur and a freelance consultant. Training, coaching, and interacting with people are some of her hobbies. So, Prachi, over to you.
Thank you, Arushi. And are you able to see my screen? Hi, Arushi. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Okay, good morning, everybody, and sorry about the noise in my background. That's the cuckoo watch that goes every hour. Okay, And thank you to the IFKI team for having me here among such a esteemed panel today. It's my delight to speak on this topic, honing human and intellectual capital. In fact, this topic is very, very close to my heart, not just in a professional capacity, but also at a very personal level. I truly believe that our ability to develop and empower people around us lies at the center of what we have to offer to others and to the society at large. So let's look at the term intellectual capital and let's understand what it is. And here's how I like to define the term intellectual capital. Your intellectual capital is like your resume. And why so? Well, there are a lot of things that we put on our resume, the skills that we bring to a job. But we also do add a lot of qualities and traits that are personal qualities and traits that we add in our resume, like my ability to work under high pressure, or being a great problem solver, or an agile learner. Now, all of these things are intangible, and yet it determines my value, and it defines my competitiveness or my USP in the job market. Now, very similarly, an organization's intellectual capital is the value that it derives from its employees and the relationships that they bring to the organization. Evidently, these are the things that cannot be translated into financial terms, and therefore intellectual capital is also termed as non-financial capital or intangible capital. Now, what makes intellectual capital? So there are three categories to intellectual capital. The first one being the human capital. Now, human capital is the skills, the knowledge, the expertise that each individual employee brings to the organization. So the collective wisdom of the many employees, all the employees in an organization actually makes the human capital. The skills and knowledge not only revolve or relate to the job that they do in hand, but could also relate to the industry or the domain in which the organization works. The real value of human capital is seen when an organization uses the skills and expertise of the individuals to develop a product or service. Or it is seen when individuals use it in problem solving and generating ideas. The second kind of capital is the relationship capital. Now, this relationship capital talks about the relationship that an organization shares with its stakeholders, its customers, its clients, the ecosystem, partners, and everybody that makes the ecosystem. The real power or the real value of relationship capital is seen in our ability to negotiate with our stakeholders. It is also seen in customer satisfaction or in customer loyalty. The last one being organizational capital, which is also called the structural capital. And this talks about the collective know-how that is there in an organization that goes beyond the individual competencies or individual abilities. This could be in form of our information systems, this could be in form of policies and procedures, and could be in form of the IP that the organization has collected. These three different categories of capitals put together makes the intellectual capital of an organization. And there's one thing which is common across all of these three, and that is the employee. And this is how I like to put it. Employee is in the center of the intellectual capital. An employee is somebody who facilitates the human capital, who facilitates the relationship capital, and also facilitates the organizational capital. We live in an age and an era where employee defines the organization by the kind of contribution they bring to the organization rather than organizations defining employees. Today, employees know extensively about their job. It's not just what they need to do, but they also know how things work. What are the things that do not work? What are the policies? What are the procedures? What are the data that is required to support that the work they do, the business process? They have abundant knowledge about how a business operates or how an organization functions. And one of the challenges that we see that organizations face today is attrition or employee separation. And that could be because of any reason. That also leads to depletion of intellectual capital. And that causes a lot of loss to an organization as a whole. While there can be a lot of knowledge repositories that can be created, but it's also important to understand that a lot of this intellectual capital actually resides in the minds and the heads of the individuals. Therefore, nurturing, grooming, honing, and developing the employees, which actually make the intellectual capital of the organization is very, very key to the success of an organization. And this is no different in corporates than it is in social sectors, in NGOs. It is equally important across all the sectors. Now, here are certain things that I'd also like to talk about that an organization can actually do to hone their intellectual capital. And they may sound very straightforward, but each is very unique and extremely important. But also what I'd like to say is that, amongst these host of things that are possible to be done to groom the intellectual capital, it's not necessary for an organization to go and bring in the change, all of it together. It's very important that the organization picks and chooses what is really important to them, what is aligned to their long-term vision and goal, and then go ahead with that. So one of the first things that organizations can do to hone human capital is skill development. Now, skill development talks about investing in those skills that are required by employees to do their job. It is a very, very straightforward and a smart business decision, because it not only impacts the employee motivation, but also directly impacts their ability to perform and therefore the productivity. Culture and engagement. Building a culture in an organization, how small or big it is, a culture that fosters creativity, a culture that fosters motivation, a culture that allows people to engage or take up jobs that are meaningful to them at a professional and at a personal level, goes a long way in building a culture that will help in organizations retain their key performers. Learning and development. There's nothing less or more that can be talked about this topic. It's a very, very key topic to develop and motivate employees, and not investing in learning and development just on key skills, but also on secondary skills, on tertiary skills, on complementary skills, skills that will help an individual or enable an individual to see their future in an organization for at least 2 or 3 years or 5 years. And if they are able to visualize that within the organization, there's more chances that they stay with the organization. Simplification of work. Very important that as an organization, we put in efforts to simplify the work, remove the complex part, remove the complex processes, so that it makes it easy for everybody to do their jobs. A performance management system that rewards and recognizes the top performers is equally important, and equally important to hone your human capital. And lastly, leadership development. And when I say leadership development, I do not mean investing in your top leadership, investing in your CXOs, people who are leading the organization, but also investing in people who are going to take up those roles tomorrow. And identifying those needs and those calibers in those people, potential in those people who have the ability to take the organization to another level, and investing today in them. So human capital may seem like a challenge. There's a lot that one can do, but if organizations understand the importance of it and invest in it across any sector, this human capital is going to become an asset in tomorrow that's there to come. I'd like to conclude with 3 points that are key when we talk about this particular subject. The first one, however intangible intellectual capital may seem, there is a direct correlation to the economic success and the value creation of an organization, the kind of brand that an organization will create for himself that will be remembered for a certain set of values. And developing an intellectual capital goes a long way in that. The second one, what you can do about honing your intellectual capital, well, there's a lot of straightforward things that you can take up, straightforward initiatives that you can take up. And sometimes they may seem quite overwhelming also, though they are straightforward. But something that I said earlier, it's not important that everybody has to do everything. It's important that organizations understand what are those key initiatives that are aligned to their strategic priorities. What is that will help to take the organization ahead in the direction in which it wants to go. And lastly, it's intangible, but you can decide and design a method to monitor and measure the growth of your intellectual capital. And if you're able to create that system, put that system in place, It not only helps the organization, but it also helps the entire ecosystem. It helps the employees, it helps everybody to understand where we are headed towards. So that is from my side, and thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you, Prachi. Thank you so much for that very interesting presentation. Up next on our agenda, I would like to invite Mr. Rakesh Goswami, who's the Director of Finance for Charities AIDS Foundation India. He would be speaking on financial management, compliance, and updates on regulatory environment for NGOs. Rakesh is a proactive and result-oriented professional with more than 22 years of experience in the wide range of working areas. Being a CA, Rakesh's extensive work in the development sector has honed him into an authority on financial compliances, NGO management, and CSR laws. Currently the Director of Finance and Operations in CAF India, Rakesh has previously handled financial, operational, and admin matters as a member of the senior management team across multiple sectors, ranging from manufacturing and media to social organizations, government bodies, NGOs, and financial educational institutes. Welcome to you, Rakesh. Over to you, Rakesh.
Thank you, Arushi, and good morning, everyone. And thanks, Arushi, to provide such a good opportunity to speak on this platform. In last 4 or 5 years, we must have realized that Government of India has tightened the rules and regulations relating to social sector. And now the old rules and regulations like Fcra, which is Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, Income Tax Act, PF, GST, lot of things has been changed. And the government and all corporate body wants that each and every NGO and the social sector should be professionalism in all his work and culture and everything. So for effective financial management, it is very important that we have to have the controls and policies in place. Arushi, can you please to the next slide, please? Yeah. So in any organization, be it social sector or corporate sector, these are the controls or the systems which we should have in place. The one is we need to have all statutory compliances, whatever is applicable, because if we are violating any of the act, whether it's FCRA, income tax, or any like Maternity Benefit Act or Minimum Wages Act, etc., etc. If we violate any of those acts, then our 12A, which is 12A is basically where organization income or surplus become tax-free, can be withdrawn by the Government of India at any time. So we have to be all the time on compliant all the time on these statutory laws and regulations. The other is budgetary controls we need to have. The other is accounting controls. Incoming funds is basically we need to have separate bank account for FCRA and the local bank account for other fundings. We need to have expenditure controls in place. Then we also need to have purchase controls, which is purchase policies we need to put in place. Advance controls, we should not pay high advances or we should not pay frequent advances. We should settle all our old advances, etc., etc. Physical control is basically the controls you must have on your all fixed assets. You should know where it is going on and what the movement is. Bank account is again, we need to have limited bank accounts. We should not have more bank accounts like 40, 50, 30 because it is always difficult to maintain those kind of bank accounts. And we should do bank recs, etc., bank reconciliation on timely basis. The other is segregation of duties. We need to have segregation of duties in all the level. Like I mean to say that the person who is receiving the goods should not make the payment and should not do the accounting. So there should be a separate controls mechanism and segregation of duties. The next slide, please, Arushi. Yeah, so in this current financial year, the budget 2020 of Government of India, they had changed, they bring few changes. as far as income tax is concerned. The one is the 12A registration and ATG registration of all the organizations require revalidation. Earlier on date was June to 31st, but now it has been extended because of COVID situation from 1st October to 31st of December. And in the given scenario, I don't think that the government will be able to like 1st October to 31st December can meet these things. I'm sure that it will get further extended, but we have to be ready to apply if it is not get extended on 1st of October to 31st of December. Otherwise, the implication will be that our 12A and ATG will get withdrawn automatically. So October to December, keep in mind, we have to revalidate all our registrations of 12A and ATG. The other amendment which came which has come in current financial year is that the new organizations who is like registering afresh, then they can take a provisional registration under section 12AB, and then it will be valid for 3 years. And the revalidation of ATG and 12A will be for 5 years. The government has also withdrawn the dual registration. Now there will not be dual registration. You must be knowing that there are two types of registration. One is 12A, the other is section 10. So under section 10 also the income of organization become tax free. So initially, and in fact till now, few organizations have these both type of registrations. In the time to come, it will get withdrawn. Only one registration will be applicable. The next slide, please. So these are the amendments, Atmanirbhar Abhiyan, which is post-COVID. So after COVID, the government has given few relief to the social sector, and the reliefs are they had reduced the TDS rate, which is tax deduction at source. Now they had reduced it to 25%. So, for example, like on professional, if it is 2%, 5%, it has been reduced by 25%. For the period, and this will be applied till 31st of March 2021. So this financial year, whole financial year, it is already effective in use from 14th of May. And now the rates of TDS will be applicable. No reduction of TDS rates will be applicable if the person to whom the payment making the payment, they don't have PAN number. Then it means that the full rate of deduction will be applicable on those cases where there is no PAN. And the due date of income tax return, as you know, it's 31st of December, but now September, sorry, it has been now extended to October 2020. The chances is further extension. Announced relaxation in Form 16, the date has been extended, and the government has also reduced PF contribution from 12 to 10%, which is till August, and now I'm sure that it will get further extended. Next slide, please, Arusi. Yeah, the annual FCRA return. Now the last date is 31st of December for financial year 1920. FCRA quarterly receipt, should be reported within 15 days following in the last day in each quarter. Reporting of COVID-19. So the NGOs who is working on the COVID-19, the MHA has issued guidelines that they need to update whatever they are working fortnightly on the FCRA website, and maybe possible on the NGO's website also. TDS monthly challan, it has been the due date is 7th of the following month. TDS quarterly return, it is from March 20, for March 20, it has been extended to 31st of July 2020. Income tax return, as I said, from 3rd of October to, it is on 31st of October we need to file. The PF return, deduction PF is also should be deposited within 15 days from electronic mode, it has to be. The one more amendment which has been done by the Government of India is on the ATG. Now the government has said that we need to file a donation statement or the statement of donation received online. However, the rules and regulations and the format and link yet to come. Once it will come, then we need to file everything online. So what will happen that once you will put that information online, then the person who has given the donation, they can get automatically benefit or deduction of tax when they will file the income tax return. So this is a good amendment which Government of India has made. Yeah, is anything left in the next slide? Just see, ROC. So that's it from my side. If there is any question or anything, I can take it now, or I can even take it later. That's it from my side, ROC. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Rakesh. I think that was very interesting, and we'll take up the questions in the Q&A session at the end.
Sure.
We will now move on to our next topic, and I would like to invite Ms. Gunjan Bhutani, who's the Senior Manager, Corporate Communication and Marketing with Total India, and she would be sharing her insights on communication and market, the power of storytelling in social media. I'd like to take a minute here to introduce her. Ms. Bhutani is a marketing and communication professional with over 8 years of experience across media, BFSI, and oil and gas industries, encompassing consumer marketing, brand management, product launches, alliances, and market research. Prior to this, she has led marketing initiatives and product launches for Sony Pictures Network and MasterCard, spanning India, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh. Welcome, Ms. Bhutani. Over to you. Gunjan, can you hear us? Gunjan, can you hear us? You will have to unmute to speak. I think you'll have to connect your audio because we cannot hear you. Gunjan, would you like to log off and log on again? We're not able to hear Gunjan. Is it okay if we can start with Ms. Sarita on the next subject and then we can come back to Gunjan's presentation? Sarita, can you hear us?
Yes, Arushi, I'm okay. If the Gunjan is not able to do it, I can do the presentation.
Okay, then we'll go back to Gunjan after you. Sure.
Yeah. So will you run my slideshow, or do you want me to do the screen show?
Yeah, so we've just made you the presenter and you can share your screen. I would like to welcome you, Sarita. She is the Deputy Head with CAF India. She comes with over 19 years of experience in the development sector. She leads and heads employee giving program and volunteering vertical at CAF. She has worked exclusively on disaster management, health and nutrition, education, HIV, women land rights. She has led the women land rights and has been a panelist at varied forums. We welcome you, Sarita. Over to you.
Thank you, Rishika. But is my voice audible? Because I just got to know that it's not very clear. Is it clear?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Yeah, and I'm not able to share my screen.
We'll share your presentation, no problem.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much. Good morning, audience. I'm so happy and I feel proud to be a part of this the Connect workshop today. And we would like to thank IFCI for doing this in collaboration with CAP India. So I'll be speaking on employee payroll giving and employee volunteering program. So as we started with our CSR, where we got to know that it is in a containment zone because of the COVID-19, the coronavirus pandemic. So we would like to tell that how our charities and active giving viewed during coronavirus pandemic. With much of the world in lockdown and many of the year's biggest charity events and fundraisers being cancelled or postponed, how do we see giving? So, keeping this as a background, CAP India has gauged that payroll giving has its footprint in the giving ecosystem. As one of the most effective ways of making regular donations to charitable cause, one feels passionately about. So, payroll giving, we can go to the next slide. CAF India's payroll giving program, which is known as Give As You Earn, it enables the employee with a very flexible means to make charitable donations from his or her payroll. So they just have to choose a cause that they are passionately they believe in, or they is very close to their heart. They just have to pledge for that cause to that NGO, a part of their salary, which gets deducted every month by their HR department. This is collated and remitted to CAP India, where we ensure that these funds get remitted to all the NGOs that the employee has chosen. So this is one of the most flexible and effective way of donating to a cause that you believe in or you are passionate about. And this is also very user-friendly, and it ensures that every employee gets a tax exemption certificate for the donations that they do at the end of the year. And they also get to know how the funds are being utilized by the NGOs that they donate for. So this is how the employee payroll giving runs, and we have been an expert in this domain since last 1 decade and more, working with many corporates, ensuring that their employees pledge from their salary, and this gets remitted to CAP India, and we disburse this to NGOs. So this is not where our role in the closes, but we ensure that so all the NGOs that we raise funds for and we disburse are also capacitated, and that is what brings us to this forum where we are together today, known as Connect. So Give As You Earn has, the next slide please, has many key elements of the program. As I said at a preface, that while it is an employee pledges a certain amount of his or her salary for a cause that they believe in, but it is a very structured program that we follow in ensuring that while it reaches to the NGOs, we are able to substantially raise through our employees through this program for our NGOs to work on ground and to ensure that the community is benefited. So there is, we do a program management. We raise these funds through varied ways of programs, structured program, flexible program, employee assistance program, humanitarian response. While we do these programs to raise funds, we also have a very robust communication management system where we ensure that this has visibility all across of the employees knowing as well as the NGOs also knowing how they are able to do this because of this small or the big amount that every employee has pledged. From there, we move on to the stakeholder management and engagement, where we have a very cordial and a continuous servicing relationship with our clients who ensure that every single rupee that is raised reaches to the right NGOs, to the right communities, and we facilitate the entire system of ensuring that it is done. And moving on from there, we have a strong NGO management and engagement system. So where we ensure that we do a capacity building workshops, we handle our NGOs, we are there for them, and we work together to ensure that the community is benefited by the funds that are raised because of these employees. We move on to the next slide, which is on the different models of payroll giving, which I have already said that it's structured, it's flexible, employee assistance, where employee raise for employees who need it, and humanitarian response. One of the biggest one right now is COVID-19, the pandemic, which has created havoc, and employees have come forward and pledged generously to ensure that people affected by COVID-19 benefit because of their donations. As I said, we have the communication support. So these are our communication support where we help the NGOs highlight the work that they do on ground to reach to the employees through various newsletters, blogs, campaigns, and the different kinds of social engagement activities. So we have a very strong communication support that we give both to the employees as well as to the NGOs. And this is how we are able to be connected, and we are able to showcase to the entire world of the great work that is being done because of the payroll giving program. And then we move on to the next slide, which speaks about the capacity building workshops, which we are doing right now, where we ensure that each and every NGO that is being supported by CAP India through the corporates are capacitated at least once or more than once during the year. They are able to know of the latest legal and compliance systems. They know about what is the latest amendments that have been made. They are able to showcase their stories, which we call it as the power of storytelling. They are able to, they know about what's happening so that they are able to raise more funds, they are able to sustain. So capacity building of NGOs is one of our core objectives. While we do payroll giving, we ensure that every NGO who benefits because of this is capacitated. And at a time when we are all working from home or in a remote location because of the pandemic, we know how important it has been. Like right now, we are having a virtual connect, which would not have been possible had this not been the situation. We would have all met at the French embassy and have a direct interface with our NGO partners and with the corporates. But this is where we realize how important it is for online platforms. And that's where we speak about our online payroll giving platform. So next slide, where we speak that CAP India has its first online giving platform, which enables the employees and corporates to give effectively and streamline the donations to CAP India's validated NGOs. It provides corporates a very robust and a transparent platform to manage, to view their employee giving spending, as well as to see the impact of how their funds have been utilized, and this happens just at the click of a button. So this is how we have been managing our payroll giving program. So online payroll giving platform, we call it as a G4G platform, and this is something that has helped many corporates to ensure that their employees are able to pledge for an NGO that they believe in or a cause that they are passionate about. From here we move on to volunteering and volunteering. So we know that online volunteering has gained momentum during this pandemic. So the focus here has been that skill-based employee volunteering is rapidly gaining recognition as a powerful driver for both social impact and business value. And while we are talking about employee volunteering, we know that the skills and the talents of the employees who volunteers matches with the needs of the communities and non-profits has a huge impact on ground. So we have a very robust vertical employee volunteering program, which is through a very stringent, as a very structured process as our employee payroll giving. So we ensure that we do a planning, onboarding, activation, evaluation, and recognition. We also follow a program design and delivery mechanism. We have a program management, similar communication advisory, a technology platform, and we ensure there's engagement and participation from both the stakeholders, employees, as well as the NGO partners. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, Sarita, but the voice is not very clear. There's an echo.
Yeah, but can you hear me? Was there clarity in all the slides that I took you through?
Yes, we could hear you, but there was less clarity.
Okay, would you like me to repeat, or is it okay with everyone?
I think now it's a little better, so you can move ahead.
Yes, please, we'll go to the volunteering slide, which is after the online payroll giving platform.
Sure.
So here we speak about the approach that Cap India, as I said, that the skill-based employee volunteering program is rapidly gaining recognition. Why? Because of two reasons: as a powerful driver of both social impact and business value. We are utilizing the skills and talents of the employees who volunteer, and we are matching them with the needs of the communities and the not-for-profits. So we follow a similar structured approach that we follow for employee payroll giving. So here we do a planning, onboarding of the employees, activation, evaluation, and then recognition, where both the key stakeholders are employees as well as the NGOs, and we play a role where we ensure that the employees are able to match their skills and talent with the needs of the NGOs, and it benefits both. So there's a program delivery, design and delivery. There's a program management. We have a communication where we showcase this, and technology platform focusing on engagement and participation. And as I said, right now, the pandemic, online volunteering has gained more. While we have three types of employee volunteering programs. Please go to the next slide. So these are short-term event-based, long-term skill-based, and pro bono mentoring. So we call them as helping hands, enthusiasts, and change makers. So one can do for a very short term, while one can do for a long term based on the skill. And there are pro bono mentoring, which is done by the employees who would like to volunteer for a specific NGO. And then we move on to the next slide, where we showcase of all our volunteering that we have been done and we are doing right now. One of our major volunteering programs has been e-volunteering, which corporates have come forward and would like to do online volunteering and enable their employees to participate in ensuring that NGOs benefit because of the volunteering. And then we have we also had a student volunteering, where because of students being locked down at home, they came forward, and this was humongous, where 550 students across 66 schools and around 10 geographical locations came forward to do online volunteering. And this benefited almost 25 NGOs, as well as raising funds for the pandemic and Amphan cycle. So this is something that during this lockdown we have been able to do, which was possible because of our employee volunteering program, and we ensured that we did the handholding, and the students learned and had a great experience of doing this online volunteering, while NGOs also benefited because of the volunteering and the talent of the students during this lockdown, when they are also having a tough time of managing many different systems in their own field. So this is all that I have to speak of employee payroll giving and employee volunteering, and I look forward to any questions that come from the audience. We'll be happy to answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarita, for a very comprehensive presentation. I would now like to know and invite Ms. Gunjan. Are you able to connect now? Gunjan, are you there with us?
Hi, am I audible now?
Yes, very clear. Yeah.
Okay,
so,
great. Sorry for that.
Move on to your presentation. Yeah, we welcome you, and we welcome your thoughts on communication and marketing, on the power of storytelling in social media. Over to you, Gunjan.
Thank you. A very good morning, everyone. I would like to thank IFCI for organizing this excellent workshop and the opportunity to speak on this forum. I'm here today to talk about the role marketing and communication can play in strengthening our not-for-profit organizations. Marketing has been gradually accepted as a core tool for not-for-profits or NGOs that form what we call the third sector of the society. It is a great tool that can maximize their positive impact. Sorry, their positive impact. For a not-for-profit, it is important to reach out to donors to raise funds for the cause and also build linkages and networks to sustain and grow. Today's social sector organizations are constantly being called upon to do much more with less. The social and economic factors that have caused this growing stress are numerous. Some of them, if you can just go back to the title slide for now, I think. Sorry. So some of these factors that were mentioned by the speakers early on in the session. For example, the first wave of digital native millennial donors are entering the scene with unpredictable giving habits and nearly unlimited options for social investment. From crowdfunding campaigns to venture philanthropy that support the explosive social enterprise space now. This means an already highly competitive fundraising landscape is becoming even more cutthroat for most nonprofits. Next slide, please. Hence, it becomes imperative that the nonprofits also apply the concepts of marketing and communication to their benefits. Marketing is, I think, so much more than a tool for fundraising and awareness building. Marketing can support every goal that a nonprofit sets, from recruiting volunteers to building partnerships to diversifying revenue streams. And that when this happens, marketing becomes a tool for driving meaningful, measurable social change in the society. When it is fully integrated into the strategic plans of the organization, it makes it possible for the nonprofit to serve those in need and also advocate for policy changes that improve their well-being. It makes it possible to build valuable networks and encourage markets to work in their favor. It also helps inspire evangelists today, sustain impact tomorrow, and continue to adapt into the future. It's very important for nonprofits to build trust. And to build trust, there must be consistency between how they perceive themselves internally, how they act, and how they represent themselves externally. Next slide, please. The right marketing plan for a nonprofit will not only help attract more funds and donations, but will also create awareness and participation of the civil society and beneficiaries. In a general sense, here the product, as we call it, is the cause or the project of the organization, and the customers are the donors and beneficiaries. All marketing and communication strategies boil down to three primary tasks: understanding the people you are communicating with, creating relevant and compelling messaging, and then delivering that messaging through a variety of communication channels. Talking about the first task of understanding your audience. Nonprofit marketing is different from other types of marketing because the organization is likely targeting multiple groups and cohorts, constituents within the organization, customers, volunteers, and donors, to name a few. It is hence imperative to define and understand each of these audience categories because your marketing will differ based on who you are talking to. For example, an email targeting donors will have a different messaging than an email calling for volunteers for a cause. Coming to the second task of crafting your message to the various stakeholders. Storytelling is one of the most powerful tools at a nonprofit's disposal, and it's likely that they have a goldmine of stories just waiting to be tapped into. If you want to use stories to your advantage, start with what you already have. Begin, for example, by asking your program staff and field staff to share stories of people they interact with every day. They probably have dozens. Then incorporate these stories into key touch points like your annual appeal, the homepage of your website, and your social media posts. Or even consider how you can turn data that already lives in documents that like your grant applications or annual reports into stories. For example, you might mine data from your annual report to do some social math and describe how accomplished a specific outcome with a certain amount of funding was last year, and hence how you can increase that impact if you hit your fundraising goal this year. It's always better to pair quantitative data like this with qualitative examples, even if that requires some theoretical storytelling on your part that helps your audience understand circumstances of the communities and individuals you work with in a more general term. If possible, you should aim to gather stories from as many different types of people your organization works with as possible, which will allow you to take many directions with your communication, paint a more complete picture of the diversity of the populations you serve, and appeal to many different types of donors and other stakeholders. Very important is that you should always plan to run the stories you choose by the people and communities that are reflected in them to ensure that they feel comfortable with the way that they are represented in your communication. There's nothing worse than exploiting the people you hope to help just to pull on donors' heartstrings. Coming to the third task in making a marketing plan of communication touch points. Many people just jump right to the step, creating and publishing various content and stories on different platforms. As I mentioned before, marketing encompasses much more than just an advertisement, a blog post, or an event. In order to execute successfully, we must complete all the steps prior to this. That includes segmenting your target audience and also crafting key messages for each segment. Regardless of the channel, whether it's email marketing, social media, events, or anything else you choose, be sure to conduct thorough planning before and as you execute on it. The digital medium, specifically social media and websites, give speed, flexibility, convenience, and agility to our efforts. Social media should also be approached with the strategic mindset one would give to traditional communication channels like outdoor media, TV, radio, etc. Interaction should be message driven. Content story-based approach really works well here along with your content. It should be useful to the audience and a part of an overall mix of communication tools that work together to create impact. To conclude, I would like to say that much like profit-focused organizations like ours, non-profits face many challenges and opportunities, including competing for a share of voice in the media clutter. They do have a significant advantage over corporate peers, though. Their perceived inherent credibility, I think, is very important, and it's not tainted by the profit motive like for-profit organizations. Interestingly, though, the mission may be noble, but if an organization is not telling its story consistently and strategically, it is bound to lose out in the noise in a cluttered market like India. That's it from me. Thank you all for your time. I would like to welcome any questions that you would have in the Q&A session.
Thank you, Gunjan. Thanks for your remarks. So we now move on to a very interesting part of our workshop, which is the panel discussion on the voice of NGOs facing COVID. We have with us Ms. Gurvinder Parmar, who's Technical Director, BSI and Associates, KPMG India, the moderator for the panel discussion, along with the different panelists from different NGOs. I would like to welcome Ms. Ekta Jaju, the co-founder with Environment Conservation Society, Ms. Sumana Dasgupta, Director, Corporate Partnership, HelpAge India, Ms. Shama Chona, Founder, Tamanna, and Mr. Arun Daniel, Founder, Youngistan Foundation. Thank you all. I would like to welcome you, and maybe I'll take a minute to introduce you to our participants. Ms. Gurvinder Parmar is the Director with DSR and Associates, KPMG India, focusing on CSR, education, and the not-for-profit space. She specializes in development and social sector clients with a focus on tax, regulatory, and advisory services ranging from strategy, implementation to compliances. She has worked extensively on the CSR law and supports a lot of NGOs and companies on their CSR strategy and compliance. Ms. Ekta Jaju is the founder and CEO at Organic Foods. She has also co-founded Switch On Foundation and has a strong experience in the areas of sustainable energy and agriculture. She has consulted several national and international organizations, including UN Women and GIZ. Thank you, Ekta, for being with us. Ms. Sumana Dasgupta has had the experience of working in diverse industries, ranging from international fashion arena, textiles, and home products, to representing international companies, to designing and building boutique hotels. She has lived in West Africa and has studied in various international schools. We welcome you, Sumana, on this platform. Dr. Shama Chona, Padma Shri and Padma Bhushan awardee, is the former principal of Delhi Public School, R.K. Puram, New Delhi, with 2 national awards and 2 state awards for her investment in the field of education and social welfare. For over 5 decades, Dr. Chona has served the community and society at large with timeless dedication. Her mission to educate and empower both the well-to-do and the needy, the abled along with disabled, and the haves with have-nots has never known any boundaries and has led to the full realization of the human potential. We are happy to have you, Dr. Shama. Lastly, and not the least, Mr. Arun Daniel. He is a young influencer who is known for his diverse contribution in the fields of media, entrepreneurship, arts, culture, and social work. He has worked with Deccan Chronicle, an English daily newspaper, and has also founded Youngistan Foundation, which is India's largest network of volunteers, fueled by the desire to change the world by touching one life at a time. The multi-award-winning organization has helped over 5 lakh people across the country, with over 50,000 registered young volunteers, and works on 7 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Over to you, Ms. Gurinder.
Sorry, I was on mute. Am I audible?
Yes, Gurinder, we can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Arushi, and a big thank you to the IFKI team for inviting me. And a very warm welcome to everybody to our session, Voice of NGOs Facing COVID-19. We're all absolutely consumed, overwhelmed with perhaps, what is being rightfully called as the black swan event of our lives. There are also terms like a before or after moment when we refer to COVID-19. It is clearly fast changing the world we live in. Yes, we've always said we live in a VUCA world, but I think we're all sort of experiencing and living it on a daily basis. We've seen that the government, along with the NGOs across the country, has been working relentlessly to combat the situation. The role of the NGOs, as we've been speaking, since morning, we all agree, is absolutely critical and so important to our nation, especially in these last few months of the crisis. And, we've seen there's been a lot of acknowledgement, whether it's from the government. The Supreme Court made a very encouraging statement for the NGOs and the work that they have done for the migrant laborers. Mr. Amitabh Kant, in fact, recently said, let me just quote what he said. He said, civil society and voluntary and non-government organizations constitute the backbone of collective articulation of citizen interest in a democracy. as facilitators, mediators, and advocates of this interest, they have put people before everything else during this pandemic crisis, which is so apt and so well put. Although what we also need to realize now is that while the NGOs have played such an important role and they've been managing so many development issues, all these issues, whether it's related to poverty or inequity, unemployment, the new issues of migrant laborers, all these are just going to be accentuated far more. It's going to require a far greater attention and to be solved at a greater scale, not just at the NGO level, with all of us collectively, across stakeholders. So the current session today has various other NGOs, corporates, different, funders, the government. So the whole idea of this session really is to recognize the critical and the important role that NGOs have played in shaping our societies, to express that voice and challenges, and identify all the challenges which they face, hear about their experiences and learnings. Today we have a very distinguished panel, which Arushi has just introduced to us. They all come from very diverse areas of expertise and focus. So we have Dr. Shona, who's an educationist and who has devoted her life to the needs of differently abled. So the whole idea today will be to go to each of the panelists, and we'll want to understand a little bit more sectorally, from them. The second panelist we have is Ms. Ekta Jaju, who has been instrumental in setting up a lot of successful ventures focused on agriculture, environment, energy, and it'll be interesting to hear what are some of the challenges and issues, maybe from a rural perspective, that they have seen in the last couple of months. Shumana Das Gupta represents HelpAge, and we all know that represents the really vulnerable population, which is the elderly, who've always been at various risks, and clearly the pandemic has posed new challenges to that population. And we have Arun Daniel, who has founded Youngistan, a foundation which is again helping a lot of destitute people on the streets, and generally encouraging a lot of small acts of care and kindness through volunteering, which is so needed in today's time. So in terms of some of the hygiene aspects, we have approximately about 40 minutes for this session. So I'm going to actually begin with an overarching question, which I will pose to each of our panelists, and I'll request everybody to adhere to the time of about 3 to 4 minutes for this question. So my first question, I think I'd like to, which is common to all, and probably we can start with Dr. Shona, is ma'am, how do you react, or how have you as an organization reacted or dealt with COVID in your organization? Whether it's in terms of any kind of relief work, or the work that we do with your children on education, any internal people issues, or any specific challenges that you felt which you had to deal with in your area of work. So over to you, Dr. Shona.
Thank you so much. Actually, I had challenges enough dealing with the disabled, but now that challenge has multiplied, because we are an NGO supported by companies. Now these companies who are supporting us, and all these children who are studying with us, who are doing their therapeutic intervention in special education and receiving counseling, are from families that are poor, and they were being supported by good companies. They were paying for their special ed and therapeutic intervention. But suddenly we realized that these large companies are themselves in trouble, so they cannot really help us. And now what happened is that I'm going with a begging bowl to individuals if they could help us sustain ourselves. It's not that the 3 branches of Tamanna School, one for the autistic, one for the young adults, and young for the very small children, can close down, nor can we get off the staff, because we are doing online education. And for that, we need the staff. We need to maintain our buildings. We need to, in fact, even not get rid of our drivers and conductors of the 7 buses that we possess. So how now do we go on? We can't think of any other way. Our biggest challenge is raising funds. Now, the funds are going either to the COVID, or the companies are not able to support us due to their own financial problems. So that is one of the biggest challenges that I have. You see me smiling, but most of the time I'm in tears because we really don't know how to market ourselves. Going to individuals, friends, relatives will last us for, has lasted us till now, but then what's the way? We don't know when we will open, and nobody can really answer us these questions. If I have a minute, I'd like to congratulate the special educators as well as the therapists who have learned the way to capture the attention of the children online. It's one of those few special schools, special institutions, Tamanna, which can actually be an example for the rest of the world. We are doing a wonderful job. Parents are very satisfied, but we don't know how to go about forward in paying even the salaries of the special educators and the therapists. That's my biggest challenge.
Gurvinder, we can't hear you. I think you're on mute.
Sorry. So thank you, Dr. Shona, for your very valuable inputs. In fact, we are going to take up a couple of those issues that you've identified in the subsequent question. For now, I'll just go with this same question, which is at an organization level, what are the challenges or issues and learnings which each of the organizations has faced? So Ekta, over to you.
Thanks, Gurvinder. So at Switch On Foundation, we have a very strong focus on the agriculture sector. We work on multiple initiatives, including setting up farm producer companies with them, or promoting solar irrigation and micro irrigation with farmers. And this year especially has been a crazy year, starting from COVID, where everything was shut down, to we've also had a cyclone in the state, Amphan, and it's impacted across multiple districts, multiple crops. In fact, all of the zaid crop that our farmers have grown has been destroyed. Also, there has been a significant challenge in terms of the credit flow into the agriculture space. We feel that though we feel that the market, in some sense, because food and agriculture is still essential commodities, markets are still running, but at the same time, the volume of production has shrunk. And also, initially, in between, there was this really big challenge where there was a big, the entire supply chain was disrupted, where a lot of the people who were purchasing, a lot of the mills, a lot of the processing units were shut down, and I think a lot of them are still shut down. And so that disruption in the supply chain has actually impacted purchases, impacted prices across the value chain. So it's been a very difficult time in the agriculture space. Also, also for our field officers to be on the field and to do much of the work has been a challenge, though I think now things have started to open up, and the access into the agriculture area has become easy, but the transportation is not plying, so there are no local trains, buses are overcrowded with migrant laborers. So yeah, multiple challenges. And while we see some work, some relief work, etc., happening, which may solve some of the short-term problems, I think we still need a very strong focus on how are we looking at a long-term solution that can solve some of these problems in the agriculture space, which continues to struggle with multiple challenges.
Thanks, Ekta. That's quite helpful. Can I move on to Shamana? It'll be one of most vulnerable populations really has been, elderly, and clearly the pandemic has posed additional challenges. So, at your organization level, the work that you do, what has been your experience of the last few months?
Hi, everybody, and thank you for having me on board. And I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Meenakshi Batra and the CAF team for the fantastic presentation that they have given everyone today. HelpAge India is one of India's oldest NGOs, where our main primary focus is the elders and the communities that they live in. And for a long time in India, though our society, our culture says something else, but the elders are actually the last on the line. I mean, we have had, though we are one of India's largest NGOs and most recognized, we still have challenges raising funds, because the primary focus used to be on, on popular programs like Girl Child, education, environment. These were very popular topics for corporates to give monies to. But still, we did manage to actually get a lot of programs because of the work we do, because in a lot of areas, we are probably one of the only primary healthcare facilities. And what we are doing is, not only are we taking care of the elders, but we are also taking care of the communities that they live in. So with the COVID pandemic that has happened, we have been able to go into all the areas and villages that actually treat our elders, make sure that they have food by giving them survival kits, teaching them about hygiene, giving them hygiene kits. So these are some of the things that we have done. Right now what is happening is that the world situation is such that we are all having to work on two premises, which is, first, save lives, which will save our country. That is happening all across the world. And the second is to save the economy from unfolding. We have to have our economy going. There has to be jobs. Unemployment is happening. Kids are unable to send back their parents' monies. So these are challenges that we are facing. And the thing is that the elders are the last that we are seeing in India that people are thinking of. And but because of this pandemic, people are rethinking about the elders, the last in the line, and healthcare. Healthcare has become of utmost importance. Earlier, the healthcare sector was getting a lot of work, but not enough. So the pandemic has opened up a lot of new doors, and people realize the need for healthcare workers, the skilling of healthcare workers, the need to take care of our elders, who are the most susceptible and vulnerable during these times. Thank you.
Thanks, Shumana. That was quite interesting. I think you've highlighted that along with the challenges, there also are some rays of hope, or certain areas which are not getting that much focus. People are thinking about that, whether it's elderly care or taking health more seriously. I'll now move on to Arun. Arun, it'll be good to understand how things have worked at Youngistan. You all do such pretty interesting work on the streets, and I'm just thinking aloud, with all of us really sitting at home, each one in some sense also just thinking about their health first. How have you and the organization been out there and done what you're so passionate about?
Good afternoon, everybody. I was just checking time. So I'm like, should I say morning or good afternoon? But it's so nice to see and learn from so many inspiring people here today morning. I want to congratulate everybody's heart for being so kind for people. Youngistan Foundation, it's a very, very young organization. If you look at us, we're all in our early 30s or even in our early 20s and 25s. And when the pandemic came into light, one of the biggest challenge for us was to see how can we help people, which is a very large need across. So one of the good things that worked out for us was we wanted to work with the local government and local bodies, and we in fact reached out to them. They reached out to us, and because we wanted to. There were a lot of restrictions around because not many people knew how to go on ground with the safety concerns and all. And one of the starting points of our work was we wanted to help out the senior citizens. One of the earlier points that we all got to hear was the senior citizens were more vulnerable to to the virus, and we wanted to see what best we can do. Hyderabad being, one of the major cities, one of the things we got to learn was there are so many elders who are living alone in Hyderabad, and the children are not in India. And when we put our word out saying, if any grocery supports are there, any medical assistance are there, we are very happy to help them out. So a lot of calls. In fact, we reached out to close to 150 senior citizens who called us, whose children called from different countries and asked us to help their parents. We used to every day morning at 6 o'clock take a few elders to dialysis tests every alternate day. So that is how our COVID relief activities began. And of course, one of our strengths is we work with people on ground, on communities, and when the migrants, especially in a city like Hyderabad, which is majorly based on IT structure. We have huge IT buildings that are in Hyderabad. We got to see the need of migrants was huge. And it was nice to see that the IT sector or the IT department of the state was trying to reach out to people in a larger way. And we also tend from our end to come on board and see what we could do. And we tried our bit to help as many migrant workers on ground, people who were traveling via the Shamik trains, and people who were. There was a massive chaos. Of course, like in a lot of other places too, because the need was everywhere. And once we started reaching out to migrants, we also got quite a learning that there was so much of need in the transgender community, in the community of people with disabilities, and places where community animals were lacking a lot of food as well. So we built a large system of volunteers. Close to 500 to 600 volunteers came on board for this program. We worked with the police, with the local municipalities, with the IT sector, and tried to reach out to as many people as possible. And
Sure.
And of course, the struggle was there financially. I think a lot of people do agree. But one of the things we encouraged a lot of people to do is give in kind, and that helped us a bit. So yes, these are something little that I could share because of time consumed, but
yeah, thanks,
that's
Arun. That's quite helpful, feedback. One of the, couple of points which have emerged. I think one of the key areas we all agree is going to be, funding issues going forward. So whether we look at the spending patterns with corporates or the shrinking, balance sheets with a lot of focus on COVID, not just right now in the short term, but even in the medium term, they are looking. So we do agree that yes, funding is possibly a challenge, and it's also from the corporate perspective. We, a lot of conversations one has, we understand they are when they look at CSR, they are going back to the drawing board and maybe looking at the strategy. So my next question, and maybe Ektal, I'll put it to you, is with sort of strategic thinking by corporates on their CSR plans, how does it push NGOs also? Do you see a mission drift happening, or considering you've been instrumental in setting up a lot of organizations, do you see that as a big challenge, where organizations or NGOs will now need to look at what is it that they've been doing in the past, and can they really exist with that? Do they need to look at doing things differently? Any thoughts on that?
be very honest with you, in the eastern part of the country and in West Bengal, we've not really seen too many organizations coming forth with CSR funding. I think a lot of that perhaps is going to the Prime Minister's fund or maybe the Chief Minister's fund. But we haven't seen much of that happening in West Bengal in the eastern part. But at the same time, I definitely feel that CSR funds can play a very crucial role at the moment in reviving rural livelihoods, setting infrastructure in the agriculture space required for finding long-term livelihood solutions there. Maybe simple things like setting up guarantee funds, which can allow FPCs or farmer collectives to get bank loans. Maybe look for funds that help them with market linkages or capacity building. Also, especially now, because a lot of the migrant laborers have come back and they're also looking for jobs. So I think it's very important if we could look at channelizing some of the CSR fund into looking at long-term solutions for livelihoods in rural areas.
Yeah, thanks, Ekta. I do hear. I think the whole idea is that one needs to look at possibly alternate sources and maybe newer ways of funding, as you say, maybe some innovative models. And which could, as you've cited some interesting examples, which could work in the agri space. I have, in fact, Dr. Shona, I wanted to just understand when I was reading about your organization, and what I read was that when you work with a lot of differently abled children, one thing which works very well with them is ICT. And even before, whether it's COVID or our really need to be so much digital now, you've been always working with them. So I think some of those learnings from usage of ICT with their children would be very interesting for the group, because that's something which, irrespective of the kind of organization, everybody has to adopt now. So we'll look, we'll like to hear from you.
If I've got you right, you're asking me how we are using the offline, online work with the students.
That's right.
You'll be so. So you'll be. We've been using ICT for the last 10 years, and now it was being by a few. But you'll be so surprised. We've been able to train all our staff to keep our kids occupied for at least 3 to 4 hours a day. And there are some who love the devices, the digital devices. Like there's a boy called Deepu. He loved holding a a mobile, and so ever since he can see his own friends on the Zoom or Google, and see his other his instructors, he feels absolutely elated. Also, these kids are very smart. They love to be lazy, so they don't have to get ready on time and get into a bus and come to the school. So what they're doing from the home seems to be quite comfortable to them, as long as they're able to do things. But one problem that we have is about the parents who are working, because these kids, they do need help for mobility. They need help for, getting them going and so on and so forth. But interestingly, the disabled, it's a bad word, or the specially enabled, love using the device themselves, because then they become masters of what they are learning instead of somebody else imposing everything on them. Can you imagine? We have music, we have dance, we have yoga, we have special education, though absolutely at the minimal level. They're even learning to water the plants or fold the clothes or iron a little bit. So all of it has been such a great experience, and the teachers, the special educators and all have evolved suddenly. So there are lessons to learn for sure. In fact, some of the parents are saying that if mobility coming to the school in a bus is a problem, can you please continue with what you are doing already? But I come back to the same old problem, that we still need to have the special educators and the therapists, and we still need to pay them. So where do I get the funds to pay them? If you could please put an appeal for us to anyone, even a small amount is okay. I know that I'll succeed finally if the people understand that we are working for a cause which is really something that needs to be taken care of. And I know of some organizations which started with just 2 rupees per person. We are even open to that and putting that on our website and so on.
Yeah. So
So
Dr.
my
Sonia,
challenge remains
right. No, we hear
the
you.
same, but one
Right. So
challenge
I
that
think, yeah, so I think we hear you, and it'll be really interesting, when you're part of this group and to see collaboration. Like, I'm sure during COVID times there has been significant amount of collaboration. So a lot of learnings which you have from ICT, there would be organizations who could learn from that, and clearly I think funding is an area, but there are, like in the capacity building section it was mentioned, there are clearly ways or systematic ways of going about it, to map your various stakeholders and look at that. I'd like to, in fact, with that funding key issue, like to just hear from Shumana. As part of your work, I think you do work with government also and this various other corporates. So do you feel that during this entire last few months and in general on a funding issue, what are some of the challenges that you are seeing, or do you see that from your key collaborators, you do expect to receive the same kind of support, and how you as an organization are tackling this issue? Because there would be good learnings for the others in this.
Okay. First and foremost, the major thing that we have faced is that monies that would have come to us on a regular day has been put into the PM Cares Fund. I mean, each and every corporate has put money into the PM Cares Fund. It's a black hole. They don't even know what's happening and where it has gone. At least with a organization like ours, we are giving you reports. We are giving you full visibility of what is happening to the money. So monies that would have come to us for certain programs has been cut down and gone into a government fund. That is the first challenge that we have faced. Now, the second challenge that we have faced is also, like, we would have regular donors giving money for our unrestricted projects. These are projects where, it may not be your popular location, or it may be a location which you are not present in. It is basically what is CSR. CSR is what you are doing for not your community, but somebody who has no connection with you. And so we have these projects which are, like very needy projects, medical health units in a place like a certain location in Bihar, West Bengal, as Ikta rightly said. I mean, there's a location in West Bengal, there's Jammu Kashmir, and what has happened over a period of time, donors have not given money for these projects, but we have continued from our corpus on funding these unfunded projects. But because monies are not coming in, we've had to shut down these units where the elderly were totally dependent on the only source of health. And at a time like this, shutting down these projects is like literally cutting off the lifeline of these elders. But we just didn't have the funds because people chose to put it in the PM Cares Fund. That is another thing. We are having to face with reducing budgets also. So, for example, we have old age homes, and as per the WHO norms, for every 10 or 12 people, you're supposed to have one caregiver after a certain age. We've had to reduce the number of caregivers. How can we follow norms when budgets are not there? People are, everybody wants that. Why do you have so many caregivers, or why do you have this doctor there? Or, so budgets are having to be reduced tremendously. So and then another scenario that we're finding is changing government policies or state level policy changes. Like suddenly today they'll say, shut down, curfew from tomorrow, So the very medicines that we're going and giving to the elders, or the healthcare checkups that we're doing, these get curbed by these seesaw sort of policies that are coming on, overnight policies or overnight, changes. But, touch wood, it's been a tough time, but, most of the a lot of the states that we work out of, we have been given a lot of government approvals overnight also to run our medical health units, because in most of these places we are the only healthcare facility at the doorstep. So challenging times, challenging environments, changing times also. And the thing that, my heart reaches out to Shona also, who's part of this panelist, and also Ekta, for example, in West Bengal, nobody wants to give money there. That's a huge challenge. And furthermore, now with the COVID situation, I think it's the last state on everybody's mind.
So, Ekta, that's
again, Eldon,
sorry, Shumana.
I'm seeing that.
Yeah, please. Yeah, you wanted to make another point?
Hello.
Yeah.
No,
sorry,
I think I've summed up properly. But yeah, challenges are all, the state directions that are coming up, government policies, PM care funds. Everybody has to realize that we're the ground, that we're the feet on the ground. We are the guys who are actually working. We are the core warriors, and and it's a entire.
Yeah, sorry, Shumana, we lost you. I think you
organization will have to take. Healthcare is so important.
Sure. Thanks, Shumana. I think you've made pretty lot of interesting points. I wanted to just go over, Arun, to you to see that in your work, two things. There's been a lot of talk about payroll giving and volunteering, which even in these COVID times has seen encouraging results. So have you in your work seen similar sort of results, with whether it's with people actively coming out to volunteer or individuals making donations?
Yes, I think in fact one of the good parts that we've noticed is a lot of people wanted a platform where they want to go help, because they realize the need is there and young people want to help. And a lot of people reached out asking how can they help, let it be as individual donors or coming on ground to help. And of course it was we had to maintain quite a lot of safety concerns, because we didn't want anybody to fall ill. And a lot of government bodies like the police and different departments were also asking for volunteers to come and help as well. So there was a lot of need, and a lot of people have come on. In fact, we put up a form across asking people to sign up. We have close to 1,500 people who signed up, and we had to close down the form. And the requests keep coming all the time. People keep asking, how can I help, individually in terms of giving money, and also in terms of volunteering. I know a lot of money in terms of corporates have stopped coming into the organization, but what I've also noticed, a lot of individuals have also started to give in terms of either financial or in kind. A lot of people, due to quite a lot of trust issues, people say we are ready to come and give in kind, and we have seen an increase of that as well. In fact, what we have started to do is now we have an education program, and also, so we've started a lot of remote learning. And what we have asked people is to come and give us your second-hand phones. And a lot of people have come forward and said, okay, there's an extra phone at home which I'm not using. Let me give that, so that a child who doesn't have a phone at home can use a smartphone to access our remote learning program as well. So in kind has risen in terms of contribution.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Thanks, Arun. So before we conclude this session, I'm just going to go around and just a quick reaction from all of you. If there are two key things which you want to put across to the corporates and the government as a support to the NGO sector? I know definitely funding would be one, but leaving that aside, what would that be? And probably Ekta, we can just start with you. Ekta,
sorry,
can you hear?
Yes, sorry, can you, I lost in between.
Okay, so my question was just quickly if you're asked that, what are the 2 key areas where you would, as an NGO, you would look for support from the government and, corporates and other funders. I think funding is clearly, we all understand, is one area where everybody needs support, but what would be 2 other things? I mean, with the COVID situation, technology is a big issue, so maybe you can just spell out 2 areas where you would look to corporates for support.
So I definitely think that anything that could help with long-term solutions for farmer collectives would be great. So if you're talking about leveraging technology, maybe something like that to help farmers get access to markets would be great, and also access to finance. So I think investment into fintech and agtech would be absolutely incredible. I would also like to throw in maybe some clean tech for agriculture would also be very critical, because I think we all need to now start looking at more decentralized models for rural development. And I think investments into some of these areas could go a very long way in building sustainable and resilient rural communities.
Okay, thanks, Ekta. Over to you, Dr. Shona. I think you're on mute. We're not able to hear you. Can others hear her? Dr. Shona, you're on mute. I'm sorry, I think I'll go to the next panelist. I'll go to quickly to Shumana. What would be the 2 areas of support which you would look for?
Hi again, everybody. I would really seriously encourage everyone to look out of their comfort zones. You see, today the crisis is an emergency health crisis, and we need to go to the unreached, reach the unreached. This is something that we need to push out to everyone. Think out of your comfort zone. Don't reach out to only your community or the people who are near your factories or your facilities. Think beyond that. Think where help is not going. That is true CSR. That is the first thing that I want to put up. Then we have, our old age homes. That's another place. Those are abandoned elders. Do as much as you can that even if it could be bringing some food for them or some sort of clothes for them. Every area has an old age home. Do your bit. What Arun Daniel is doing is fantastic also, the volunteering that he's doing. Maybe he can also think of sending people to old age homes. It need not be a Helpage India old age home. It should be any old age home close by. Spending time. Loneliness is another thing that everybody is facing, especially our elders. So again, the 2 important territories, please go beyond your comfort zone, reach the unreached, go in for unrestricted projects as well, give utmost importance to healthcare right now, because once health is there, everything is there. There's an old saying, when health is gone, everything is gone. So that is where we need to really put in a lot of emphasis.
Thanks, Shumana. And at last, Arun, any quick thoughts from you? Does your organization also do some interesting work with animals? Because that's I think, an area which requires a lot of support.
Yes, we do. In fact, we've reached out to over 5,000 community animals in terms of feeding food on daily basis. In fact, what we have done is we made community heroes in each locality, where we said a volunteer who signed up. So we have this 3 kilometers radius. You're not allowed to go beyond that. So we say in your own 3 kilometers area, feed an animal or look out for somebody who's in need, let it be a senior citizen or a person in need of food. We have, in fact, ma'am was saying, we want to, we have been working with a few old age homes also in our own areas and orphanages. We are trying, in fact, to check how we can come out with few. Of course, we have helped in terms of food requirements, but we want to come up with some activities that we want to work with old age homes and different centers. But I think one of the two, like the question you said, two important things that we've realized in terms of today's need is, of course, I want to encourage a lot of corporates to be, not to take the easy way out and help, the PM cares or the CM relief funds, but also to look out for NGOs who are working way more harder on ground, choosing, a career which is not that popular in a country like India. So I want to encourage a lot of people to help NGOs in their struggle to help people, and also government too, so there's so much that government can also support NGOs on grounds if they can also help people. At this minute, one of the major two needs that what we figured out is there is so much of plasma. So we are encouraging a lot of people to come out and see how they can understand that donating plasma is okay. It's not scary as people are thinking it is. So we are trying to encourage that, because the cases in Hyderabad are seeing an increase. So we are encouraging people to start donating plasmas. We're trying to reach out to hospitals and trying to see what help that they need. So these are two things that we are doing at this minute in terms of need on this. But everybody knows the need. Everybody has access to internet. So wherever and whatever you can do, please do reach out and help people in your own way.
Yeah. Thanks, Arun. And I think with that, I'll conclude the session. We've come to the end, and it's been a really insightful and a learning session for me as well. And I hope the audience has also enjoyed. I'll hand it back to Arushi, because I'm sure there are a lot of question and answer from the audience for the panelists and other speakers. Thank you once again to all my panelists, and goodbye.
Thank you, Gurvinder. Thank you, other panelists, Ekta, Dr. Shona, Arun, and Sumana. I think this has been a very interesting and insightful panel discussion for everyone to attend and listen to. We'll now move on to the question answer session. I would request my colleague Diksha to take up a few questions which we've received in the chat box. And I think speakers can decide, who would like to take up the question accordingly.
Thank you, Arushi, and thank you all the panelists. The very first question that we have is from Mr. Jagdish Baheti. His question is regarding the FCRA approval by the Government of India. He says, we tried in many ways to get FCRA approval but failed. He also reminds us about the situation of approximately 6,000 NGOs in India whose licenses were in jeopardy a few years ago. He asks if you can suggest some consultant or lawyer who could support them to get FCRA approval so that they can get funds transferred for the CSR from their France headquarters.
So yeah, hi, this is Rakesh Goswami. So can I answer to this?
Sure, Goswami.
Yeah, so Jagdish, I think we have a number of legal firms with whom we interact on a daily basis. And if you can write me on an email, then definitely we can just help you out in this matter. But currently the situation is COVID, and the MHA is also not focusing more on this area. They are focusing on other things. So, but yes, we can definitely help you out. And I had also responded to your question which you had sent on chat.
Okay, thanks, Rajesh ji. I'll definitely reach you. Thanks very much to answer my question.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Goswami. Thank you,
But
Mr.
again, like it's been 2 years we were trying. Even before the COVID, we didn't got the approval. There were many ways in which it was rejected, and lot many NGOs were also rejected and their licenses were cancelled. So maybe I'll try it again through you. Thanks very much.
Yeah, you can contact me on my mobile number. You can get from ROC, or you can just send me an email, and then maybe we will interact, and we will also see what type of applications and information you are submitting to them. Maybe we can help you out with that.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Rakesh. Thank you, Jagdish. The second question is from Disya, who's from Goonj NGO. She says the whole world is amidst a non-ending COVID-19 pandemic. In this context, she asks, how feasible is corporate volunteering for NGOs working at the grassroots level, and how it should be tackled and understood by both the NGOs and corporate world alike?
Hello, this is Sarita. Can I answer? Hello.
Sure, Sarita, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not able to recall the name, but it's a question from one of the representatives from Goonj. So, while I answer very briefly in this forum, I would like request you to connect with us so that we can have a more detailed steps of action, how it can be done. But at the moment, while corporates who have come forward showing interest that their employees are interested for online volunteering, we give them a series of options of if they are supporting some NGOs and they would like to directly volunteer with them. We give them the options of what is the need of the NGOs and how it aligns to the skills and talent and the interest of the corporate employees. While it can be the other way around also, the employees share their list of interest and we share it with our NGO partners, and we ask them what is that they would like to pick up from the bucket, and they share with us what is that is going to help them. So we ensure that we are able to do it 2 ways, and the employees do it online volunteering. So right now, like there have been employees who have helped NGOs in blog writing, in creating photo stories, case stories, doing small videos, small PowerPoint presentation, counseling them, taking classes. So these are some of the activities that corporate employees have been able to do with their NGOs, and this has completely been done online.
Thank you, Sarita. The next question is from Ms. Shilpa Sharma. She asks, how can an NGO tap individual donors? Like, from where can they have an access of data?
Maybe I'll answer that. Meenakshi here. So Shilpa, that's a $1 million question. There are no you just need to, build your own database. So I don't know where your location is. You could be, sort of increasing your networks, talking about your work. And that's another area. I don't know. Where are you from, Shilpa? Can you just tell us which area?
Ma'am, I'm working for CYDA, and it's based in Pune, but we are working in 6 states also parallelly. So our head office is in Pune.
Yeah. So that's an area that we are also exploring, and in that we are collaborating closely with the NGOs. So again, get in touch with us. Our contact details are there. You basically, the approach is that you build your own databases. The online databases are being sold to many organizations, and these online these agencies which help you mobilize online or tele fundraising services, etc. They are very expensive. So one needs to devise their own way of doing fundraising very cheaply. So what we need to look around ourselves, what are the resources that we can tap into. Local philanthropy, I mean, everybody, looks towards Mumbai, Delhi, etc. But I would say local philanthropy is we should tap into the local resources. And that is something that we can do.
Organization on the NGO validation platform. So a dashboard has been given to the organization, but what next? I mean, I'm not able to post any campaign and how it works. I have also written on the mentioned email ID ngovalidation@caf.org, but that too during lockdown in the month of March and April. Can you just guide me how to proceed further?
So basically, we will, now that you are in our system, we will come back to you as and when an opportunity arises to work. I mean, if we, find a donor who is interested in your location or your skill area, we will come back to you. Your details are with us. And we have been hearing how challenging it's becoming these days with lots of people spending, corporate spending money on COVID and other programs might not really attract the same amount of funding. But we will see, I mean, it's still early in the year, financial year. So we will see how things evolve. Government may come up with something that, further donations. We have also said that if they donate some money in this year, they can count for it in the next financial year. So additional money I'm talking about. So there are those things which have been said, but we are looking forward to receive rules around that. So we will see, how this year goes. We just need to have a little bit patience at this particular point of time. But you are with our database, and that's really great. And we will come back to you when an opportunity arises.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Shilpa, I would also like to add something to that. For all the corporates that are here who are listening to this, you have to also understand that an NGO or not-for-profit works on two types of fund. One is the unrestricted funds and one is the restricted funds. And what happens is that when you restrict a fund, it becomes ring-fenced around a certain project, and you can only use it there. But you see, NGOs also have other projects which are very important, equally important as the restricted ones, and that is where unrestricted money is required. Like, for example, I gave of our medical health units, which are now, we have had to shut them down. I mean, I can look outside my office, I've got 3 vans standing there right now. This is where unrestricted, had I had the unrestricted funds, which comes through, employee giving or some personal donation, this is where somebody like Shilpa or a program like ours would benefit. Thank you.
Digital Inclusion and Sustainability Leader at Capgemini India and the Chairman of the IFCI CSR Committee, for his concluding remarks. Anurag brings with him more than 21 years of diversified experience in CSR, community development, grant management, capacity planning, and resource management. Over the past 2 decades, he has worked with the grassroots agencies, donor agencies, UN agency, and corporates. In his present role, his focus has been on designing an overarching strategy for Capgemini CSR and for crafting relevant goals, policies for all programs, managing the budget for CSR programs and operations, and managing relationship with a broad set of stakeholders. Welcome, Mr. Anurag, and over to you for the concluding remarks.
Thank you, Arushi. I hope I am audible to everyone. a dear fellow traveler in social transformation journey. It was interesting listening to the panelists, and it was also interesting to see the kind of questions which were getting raised and answered. I was part of this particular deliberation since morning, and it was good to see the connect in true sense, connecting the NGOs with the thought providers, to fund providers, to and say the design providers or the policy providers in all possible sense. It was heartening to see the kind of participation that I see on this particular digital conference, and I'm glad that we organized this. I'm glad that CAF did the facilitation. I'm glad that all of you joined in. And I'm glad because this is a strange situation that we all are in right now. COVID in a number of ways has transformed the way we look at our relationship with our peers, relationship with our colleagues, relationship with our communities with whom and by whom with whom we are working. Everything got changed, and it's very pertinent that to understand that those NGOs or those corporates who are quick, who have agility in them to respond to this project change, and then bring in those strategies so that they remain relevant, will remain relevant. Otherwise, there is a danger that we all, if we don't change, will become obsolete. And it's not just limited to NGO change journey, but it covers everyone, all corporates, all entities, in whatever form they exist. I heard PMKS getting, in the sense, hammered. I'll say rightfully, wrongfully. I won't get in there. But the point again is that we need to somewhere introspect. That corporates are reaching out, giving money to PMKS or any other body or any other framework created, then can we, in the sense, from NGO side, we also make ourselves pretty known, credible, so that people can reach out to us and respond and contribute. We need to position ourselves, and we need to position corporates, government, many other people start giving us the space that we all should have. It was heartening when government filed an affidavit in the court saying that 14 of this state where the meal program during COVID was run predominantly by NGOs, and that is a pat on our back. That is, in the sense, symbolizes the strength that we all have. That also symbolizes the kind of potential that we all have. What we need to certainly do is to make sure that we become visible, we become stronger, and that's the reason why these workshops becomes very important to understand the rule of the game. One, second is to understand who all our allies are, and third, to understand the kind of strength that we have and the kind of strength that I need to build on to be or to become an active player in this particular space that we all are in right now. I saw those questions, and those questions are very, very relevant when you're talking about getting the local donors, getting the individuals become part of your donor database. I heard Sumana talking about how we can make sure that the NGOs get more untied fund, and these are these in a way raises a question on are we really building our own strength and our capability to raise resources which are not controlled by someone else. If we don't, then certainly the resources will be tied up to a project. It will get controlled by the giver of that particular fund. But we need to use forum like this or a network like this to sharpen the skill set that we have to mobilize resources, which certainly will help us in making sure of doing things that we love to do. Another element, I know that the time is essence here. We need to somewhere become niche in a product or a service that we are bringing into the market, because if you are like any other NGO, then people will go to the NGO which are present in their own areas. They will not reach out to NGOs who may be far off in the area. But if you have a niche product or niche services, people will certainly reach out. It's just like for Mysore Park, we'll go to a shop to buy it because we know that they serve the best of the quality stuff. Similarly, if we have certain things within ourselves also, which in a way says that this particular intervention can be done beautifully and impactfully by this particular NGO, people will reach out to that particular NGO. And that's where the beauty is to make sure how we strengthen our skill set, we strengthen our portfolio to reach out to corporate to say that, hey, I have these things and no one else can provide these services. And I trust me, there are a number of corporates who reach out to you and work with you. Corporates have become leaner and meaner in this COVID season. Same will be requested from NGO side also to become leaner and meaner, because it's a question of how much fund is available and what is the core that we should be funding and what is the important work that we need to do. And that's where the rule of the game is that either you convince the corporate or get convinced by the corporate. And that is where it becomes very important for these kind of workshops to strengthen our argument so that we can convince corporate. Thank you, Meenakshi, for organizing this. Thank you for making sure that we get the right kind of people to provide the input that they should be providing. And thank you all of you for joining. And I'm not giving a vote of thanks, but I just thought that it would be pertinent for me to share my gratitude to all of you who organized this particular conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Anurag. I would now like to invite Ms. Gurpreet Bhatia, the lead for marketing communications at CAF India, for a vote of thanks.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Arushi. I'd like to, on behalf of the entire team of CAF India, I'd like to thank His Excellency Mr. H.E. Emmanuel Lenen, IFCCI team, our esteemed speakers, and our NGO partners for taking the time out and join Connect, an NGO capacity building workshop today. I'd just like to add that at this juncture, it is very important for multi-stakeholders to come together and help mitigate the COVID crisis in India. It is also important for us to adapt to the changing times. And that's where the platforms like Connect plays a prominent role. We are definitely going to be, bringing more of these consultations to bring in the spotlight of to the issues that the NGOs are facing, and also to, kind of bring to limelight what would be phase 2 of COVID look like. Until now we were only focusing on response, and now is the time to really rebuild. So we are going to be getting in touch with all of you on the, next consultations. Also, I'd like to request you all to share your feedback with us. We will be separately getting in touch with all of you all. Please take out the time to give us, your feedback on this, how we can improve, what else you'd like to hear from us, during the workshops like these. And at the end, I'd like to again thank all our partners, all our facilitators, speakers, to be a part of this really esteemed workshop. We have got great insights, and it's going to be really important now to kind of take next steps towards it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Gurpreet. I would now like to close the session by mentioning that we are grateful to His Excellency Mr. Emmanuel Lenen, the Ambassador of France to India, for gracing the session with his presence. Special thanks to Ms. Olivia Bellomer, the Political Counselor at the Embassy, for her constant support towards this program. Thank you, CAF India. Thank you, Dassault Systems Foundation, for associating with IFFCI for this important workshop, and the leadership of the IFFCI CSR Committee, Mr. Anurag Pratap, Mr. Shankar Ramakrishnan, and the advisor, Ms. Sumana Dasgupta, who was also one of the panelists at the panel discussion today. Thank you, all our speakers, Ms. Meenakshi Batra, Mr. Abhijeet Kumar, Ms. Prachi Mishra, Mr. Rakesh Goswami, Ms. Gunjan Bhutani, Ms. Sarita Pradhan, Ms. Gurvinder Parmar, Ms. Ekta Jaju, Ms. Shama Shona, and Mr. Arun for sharing your thoughts with us. And last but not the least, we thank our participants, NGOs as well as corporates for joining us today. We hope you found the workshop useful. Have a great day ahead. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Okay,